Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and we are back again today with yet another of these brand new Paleo Revived figures. And this time, not only do we have one species, we actually have two species. But the first species we have here to the right is the Homalocephale, and we also have a very intriguing pterosaur over here to the left. You may notice sitting down there. That is the Anurognathus. Now, I'm not too familiar with that species of pterosaur, but, you know, I have seen it around a few times. Not something I've ever really looked into too much, but as you can see, it is an extremely small figure. My camera didn't even want to focus on it. It's so small. The Homalocephale are obviously a bit larger, which we can see here to the right. Significantly larger than the pterosaur, but overall, you know, all of these figures, again, it's another great round of Paleo Revived figures, this time with no articulation. Seems like I'm almost going articulated, then non-articulated, articulated, then non-articulated. Almost seems like that's how it keeps working. I wasn't really planning it out that way, but it does seem to continue to fall that way when it comes to the reviews. But these figures look honestly awesome, so let's jump straight to a closer look and we'll check them out from there. So beginning with the Homalocephale, you can see they look really beautiful. I think Dinomikemak yet again did an excellent job on these guys, and you do have a few that you get when you purchase them as usual. It seems like when it comes to a lot of the smaller species, when you do order from Dinomikemak, he gives you a couple of each version, like, you know, you get, I think it was like 6 Compsognathus and similar numbers with like the Microceratus and stuff. So again, you get numerous of these guys. I have 3 here, and I have painted them up in a way that's similar to what I had seen in Jurassic World Evolution. That was my inspiration as far as the paint apps go, and I did 2 as females, 1 as what I would see as being a male, I think. So we'll get to that here in a moment, but you can see again that head sculpt is absolutely gorgeous. It is very nicely done. Also sports some very nice, very fine skin texture. You can also see that we have the beak sculpted out here, the nostrils as well. The beak is sculpted in an open position ever so slightly. As you move up here toward the top of the head, you have all of those little bumps sculpted out here around the dome of the Homalocephale. You can see also up here on the top of the head, the dome area is very nicely sculpted. Also sports some nice texturing to it, which you can see is very fine. As you continue to move down through the course of the dinosaur, you can see the throat right there. You can also see the creasing in the skin in the back of the neck, as well as again some more really nice skin texture. As you continue to move down, you've got the arms sculpted out really nicely there. You can see the fingers as well. As you continue to move down, you can see the skin detail looks really good. You can just see like the nice scale detail and everything. You can also see the spinal column here moving along the back of the dinosaur, leading down into the lower part of the stomach. You've got a few skin wrinkles and creases. You can see that just like with many of the figures in this line, these are posed in a neutral position, which I do quite like. We can also make out the muscle definition in the thigh and the calf moving down. You've got the knee right there. Again, a really nice looking foot sculpt as you lead down into the feet. You can see that the nails are sculpted nicely as well. You also have dew claws, which you can see back there. And again, kind of a bird-like looking foot sculpt. And then you lead up here into the tail and you lead out. You've got a really nice, very slight curve to the tail. Not even like a curve left or right, just a curve down and then slightly back out into like a straight line right there as you lead out. The tail obviously ends in a very nice tip. If you lead along the underside as well, again, the skin texture looks really nice if my camera focuses correctly on it. The skin detail is really well done on this figure. And then you're going to see pretty much, of course, the same thing for both sides of this dinosaur. And as I said, I tried to base my paintwork off of the Jurassic World Evolution version. Hopefully it turned out okay. And then we also again have the other one that I have here, again, that I also painted with the female sort of coloration, and like I said, I was pretty happy with the way these guys turned out. I think they definitely look kind of reminiscent to what they look like in Jurassic World Evolution, and just generally, again, it was a very nice looking color scheme that they had chosen for them that I tried my best to replicate, and I'm pretty happy, again, with the final product, especially, of course, because the sculpts are just so darn nice. They're definitely some of the best Homalocephale I've ever seen. And then we also have this version, which you can now see the differences between what I would think would be the male version and the female version, as we have some nice bluish tones here, and just a little bit of variation of color difference as you move through the entire figure. You'll see some slight different tones in the dome and everything here of the dinosaur, different variations of color, honestly, through the course of the entire body. And again, the bluish tones are significantly different, significantly brighter than what we see when it comes to like the grayish browns that we have on what I would say would be the females. But really, again, just an incredible sculpt in the part of this line. Dinomikemak has absolutely been killing it with these Paleo Revived figures, if you ask me. Definitely some of the most fun figures that I've entered into my collection in quite some time. Now, obviously, all three of those figures are the same sculpt. I just gave them different paint schemes. Now, when it comes to the Anurognathus, this guy is very small, so it's going to be a little bit iffy to take a good closer look at this guy because he is so small. Again, I tried to search for what the Jurassic World version would look like on this pterosaur, and I did find some images of it, and I was, pretty happy with the way it looked in those images, so I went and tried to replicate that coloration kind of as closely as I could. There's not a whole lot that you're really going to be able to see, I think, on this guy, because as I said, he is so tiny. He's maybe a little bit bigger than the compies, but not by much. You can obviously see that the pterosaur is sculpted with its mouth in a closed position as it's flying along. It's soaring very nicely. The wings are extended, and if you look at the actual wings themselves, you can see that the skin texture looks nice. There is some ever so subtle fine detail and slight wrinkling there to the skin of the wings, but obviously with the wings extended, you're not going to see a whole lot when it comes to that sort of thing going on. You can see that the toes are sculpted, the fingers are sculpted up here on the wings, and even the tail there is sculpted as you move back into the back of the pterosaur. But it is a really, really nice figure, and it's also just generally a super cool species to be able to add to a collection like this and have one of these to enter into our, Mattel Jurassic World collections. And obviously it's a species that I don't see Mattel making anytime soon, so it is a very, very neat one on the part of Dinomikemak to have. And it's also our first pterosaur in this line, which is really, really cool. So definitely another awesome figure, again, in a, at this point, growing a line of very, very awesome figures. Now, the only unfortunate side of this guy is so far the Paleo Revived figures have all balanced really nicely, but this one is a bit top-heavy for me, so I can't really get him to stand like the, normal way with the tail up off of the ground. They do stand pretty nicely once you lean them back on their tails, but I can't really get him to stand like this, as you can see, he continues to fall forward. If you glue him onto a base or something, you're really not going to have any issues as far as that goes, and you can have them looking absolutely epic, I would think. The figures are phenomenal when it comes to the sculpt. They just don't stand too well for me with their tails up off of the ground. Obviously, the pterosaur you're not going to have much of an issue with when it comes to that. He's in a soaring position, so standing isn't something that we're going to have to deal with when it comes to that guy. But as far as a size goes, for a wingspan on the pterosaur, you are looking at about 2¼ inches or just shy of 6 centimeters. And then for a length on the Homalocephale, we'll go ahead, get this guy in, I don't even know how to do it actually, in a better position. I just knocked them over 4¼ inches or around 11 centimeters. And I have to pick these poor guys up now that I just took them all out. And then for a height, you were looking at a little under 2 inches or right around almost on the dot for 5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human Being next to our Homalocephale and Anurognathus. And you can see again, these figures are all fairly small, nothing huge going on with these guys, and the large majority of the figures that we've taken a look at so far in the Paleo Revived line, outside of a few, have been fairly small figures, though the Homalocephale are definitely a bit larger than a lot of the others like the Microceratus and Compsognathus and stuff like that. Then when it comes to another Mattel comparison, we also have a Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus, two very popular figures in the Mattel range to step in for a comparison next to these figures. And then when it comes to smaller species like this, it's almost customary for me at this point to bring in some minifigures, which we have a Mattel Mini and a Captives Mini next to these figures, just to continue to give you an idea of the size. And to stay consistent with some of my previous Paleo Revived reviews, we'll bring in a few figures from the line that we've previously taken a look at. We have the Microceratus and Compsognathus, which you can see again. They are definitely very, very small figures, though at this point I think it's pretty obvious that the Anurognathus is the smallest of the Paleo Revived figures so far. You can see how small it is there, even compared to the Compsognathus. And then for one final comparison, when it comes to Paleo Revived figures, we have the Ornithomimus as well as the Morose here stepping in for another comparison next to our Anurognathus and Homalocephale. So these are, again, some more really cool figures. Not just figures, but really cool species to enter the Paleo Revived line. Honestly, Dinomikemak has, come out of the gate swinging when it comes to these figures, giving us so many super cool overlooked species. Normally when companies, kind of pull up and show us what they've got, they often bring in, the heavy hitters, big, really popular species like Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops and things like that, stuff that's really going to blow your mind and make you think, wow, I need to grab those, and then introduce some of these less popular species later on. Dinomikemak, however, has gone the alternate route and just given us a bunch of species that we've probably been, hoping and praying we would get from someone at some point, and just holding off on the other species for a later date. Again, giving us the really cool species rather than the really popular species. I think they have been all fantastic all the way up until this point, and yet again, another round of fantastic figures here. Maybe actually some of my favorite from the line overall, at least as far as these Homalocephale go. I really, really like these figures. The sculpts are great on them. The fine detail looks great. And now with these paint apps on them, they just look so good here, standing before me. The only thing, again, the Homalocephale don't balance too well standing up, but when you lean them on their tail, they stand pretty nicely. But I think they're probably my favorite figure to come from the line up until this point so far. I just absolutely adore these figures. And again, the fact that you get numerous with the Homalocephale is also a really fun aspect to them. And what's even crazier is when you actually purchase the Homalocephale, you can get 3 of them, all 3 that we see here, for $6. Wow, is that ever an incredibly cheap price for something like that? That's one of the most impressive things about these Paleo Revived figures, is how incredibly affordable they are. I can't see Dinomikemak making any money on these at all. He's basically just doing us a favor, it seems, when it comes to these figures. And then you also have the Anurognathus, which is, again, an incredible species in its own right, and you can get 2 of those for $4. So obviously Dinomikemak giving us the deals of a century, I would say, with these figures, but also giving us extremely cool species, extremely nicely sculpted species and figures. So again, another round of absolute awesomeness from Dinomikemak, whether it be the Homalocephale or the fact that we have an Anurognathus, which again is a species that up until this point I did not have in my collection at all, and it's really just incredibly cool to have a version of it, especially one so small. But if you are interested in these, just like with all of the other Paleo Revived reviews, I will include links in the description to where you can head on over there and grab them for yourself. So make sure you do that, and of course make sure you follow Dinomikemak on Instagram to stay up to date on everything that he is working on and creating, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.